Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing very well. We're working our way through your list of viewer requested videos, and today is which is the best way to learn a DCS module. As far as video games go, DCS is pretty much as complex as it gets. I mean, it's a simulator rather than a video game, but it falls into the video game category. And so figuring out how to actually learn these modules is key. So there are 4 ways of learning a module, and the first thing to say is that neither of these is wrong. If you've paid your $80 for your Hornet or your Viper or whatever, then you can learn it however you want. There are better ways and there are worse ways, but it's your game. You can do what you want with it. Now, I'm in a really good position to tell you guys about this because I've learned every single player. I've got them all. I've learned them all in different ways because I've progressed from being a guy who had no idea what he was doing to now I'm kind of starting to teach you guys, and I've used all of these different methods. So the methods we've got in order of worst to best in terms of efficiency of learning the aircraft is 1. You learn by trying. 2. You have others teach you. 3. You learn by tutorials, videos or documentation. And 4, the absolute best way, you learn using the official written manuals. So 1, as soon as I got into DTS, the first thing I did was I bought an F-15C, I think it must have been, and I just flew around on a multiplayer server immediately and tried to shoot stuff down. It was a terrible idea because learning by trying, you learn almost nothing apart from your own biases and you never get good. So like I said, nothing is wrong here, but this is a terrible way of learning an aircraft. I think we can all agree. Then I moved on to having others teach you. So I joined some multiplayer servers, got some friends, made a little group, and those guys were more advanced than me, and so I had them teach me. And you can see some early videos where I didn't even know how to learn a plane. I didn't know how to read a manual. I wouldn't even know how to employ that manual if I did. I just had the others guys said, press this button, do this, do that. And I kind of sort of just about learned to fly the aircraft that way. Now this is the second worst because although you can pick up some decent experience from that, because it is so far from the official way of doing things, you just learn the biases of what that other guy knows. You miss out everything that that other guy doesn't know, and it just allows you to learn the absolute basics. So again, to reiterate, there's no wrong way of doing this. Do whatever you want to have fun, but to really learn the aircraft, this is definitely not the best way of doing it. That said, it can be the most fun way of doing it. Now, I've just put out a video showing how you can come and fly with us, not necessarily the full-time team like with me and RC, but with the kind of part-time guys that we have, with loads of them now, and they are in our servers and you're all free to go and join them, and I've showed in that video how you can go and do that, and just out of being friendly they'll teach you how to fly the plane, how to use the different systems. So that's one way that we can offer that you guys can come and just learn for free basically. The third way, and this is just the most popular because it's a halfway house between the official way of doing it and these two guys here, is learn by tutorials. YouTube videos or documentation. So a YouTube video example is me, I do them, and a whole bunch of other guys do them as well. We've got about 10, 15 guys putting out videos now. Or documentation, a good example is Chuck's Guides. I'm sure you've all heard of Chuck's Guides. They are just, if you like, PDF versions of our videos with screenshots, and it depends. Some guys prefer videos, some guys prefer seeing something, static pictures, whatever you prefer. It all works fine. The only advice is obviously make sure the guys who are doing this actually know what they're doing. I mean, I'm a great example for that because the tutorial vids I did 2 years ago were absolutely terrible, like really bad. No idea what I was doing. And finally, after 2 years, for guidance from you guys telling me what you wanted, I now learn the planes properly and I can now finally put vids together. So obviously, caveat is you've got to make sure the guy actually knows what they're doing. Now, this is a good, efficient way of learning your video. It teaches you which buttons to press, in what order, to fire the bomb, to hit the tank. The only problem with it is that we are very restricted. I used to make videos that were really long and I'd usually talk about the systems behind the buttons that I was pressing, but the problem with that is it wasn't very popular. You guys didn't like that. You guys who watch these videos want just 3 minutes, press A button, B button, C button, and that's it. The tank blows up. And so those are the videos I'm putting out now because that's the only way I can be competitive. So although it does teach you, technically, these methods, how to fly the plane, it doesn't actually teach you about the plane itself, which is probably the most important thing here. So that takes us on to number 4, the official manuals. Now, first of all, there's a caveat here. Most of the manuals and DCS are fine, heat blur manuals are fine, ED manuals are all really good. Some manuals are crap. Harrier manuals pretty crap. I know they're not complete, obviously that's why they're crap. They're just early access guides. The Chinese manual for the JF-17 is appallingly bad. And so this only applies to the good manuals. Obviously, go and look at the A10C, go and look at the F818C. And the good thing about these manuals is they tell you, just like these, what buttons to press and when, but they also teach you why. Why does a radar do what it does, roughly speaking? Why does this missile do this and then go and do that? So it teaches you a bit of a background behind all of the systems, as well as just what button to press. Now, the vast majority of you, like I used to be, do not like to go and read manuals because you've got 300-400 pages. Most people just don't like reading a book on our free time. This is our free time. We just like to have a bit of fun. But officially speaking and technically speaking, this is the best way to do it. So this is how I started playing. Then I started playing like this. Then I started playing like this. Now, the first thing I do when I get a module, and not all of you are going to do this, the first thing I do is I print out the manual and I sit there and read it. And Alison will confirm that I just sit in bed up all night reading the manual, going through every single page and learning the systems behind the controls, behind the systems. And that is the best way that you can learn that plane. There are a couple of advantages of learning by vids over official manuals and maybe over docs, is that in vids, you can actually physically see when I press a button what their actual action is, and you can then go and try and duplicate it in your aircraft. And I'm talking about problem solving. If the missile's not firing for some reason, and you followed all the steps in the manual, and you followed Chuck's guide, it's still not firing, in the vid, you can actually see physically what I'm pressing, how the screen should look after you press that button. So that's one advantage of the vid that of course the manuals don't have, but that's really up to how well the manual is written and how well it's updated. Sometimes manuals are not updated immediately. A lot of problems with this with the Hornet and stuff like that when they're not updated straight away, and I'm trying to do the vids and stuff. And to show you where you get the official manuals in case you don't know, so you've installed the game, so it's on eDrive for me, and DCS World, and mods, aircraft, I want my F-16, documentation, and there is your early access guide. 223 pages, nice and neat and concise. And when learning these manuals, I guess everyone's got their own technique. I just like to go page through page, read every page, don't leave anything out. And that's the best way. You can just get it to stick in your mind. And the other good thing is these manuals are written to be understood in this order. You learn the basics, you learn the panels, you learn the controls, and it will take you. And then at the very end, you'll be dropping the bombs. It's much better to go in and learn it from the beginning than to come in and your first thing you want to do is drop a laser guided bomb. So those are the 4 ways of learning in descending order of goodness. It's up to you to choose which you prefer. Like I said, it's your free time, it's your game, it's your fun. Now is employing the learning, and it's a simple case of gaining muscle memory and learning by doing. So you've learnt the procedure from a Grim Reaper's vid, from Chuck, from Wags' manual. You've just got to go and fire that Maverick now 30 times in a row until it becomes muscle memory, at which point you just don't have to think about it anymore, and then it's locked into your system. One extra thing on that is that learning it on the training field is very different to learning it in the battlefield. So you'll often see me doing the tutorials and in F-16 or whatever, and I do it more or less perfectly as per the manual. Then I've got a mission coming up and I go do the mission, and because you have all the extra stress with the mission, you know, I cock it up basically. And that's the difference between learning it on the training field when you've got active pause on, you've got no bad guys shooting at you and whatnot, and actually doing it in combat. So as well as learning it on the training field when there's no stress, you do need to learn to do it in combat. And again, it's just experience. I think I can really help with that. You just need to be in multiplayer servers or single player servers or whatever, being fired at, and learning it through repetition like that under stress. The next thing I want to mention, and the last thing, and what I think is the most important thing here, most people, when they pick up their DCS World module and they just want to go in and fire some missiles, drop some bombs, blow some stuff up, right? I was the same when I started too. But the best thing you can do is not just watch a quick vid and learn how to fire a couple of bombs. The best thing is understanding the physics. And I don't mean, you know, complex physicist physics, just the absolute basics. And again, the basics behind the systems that lead to you dropping the bombs. That's the best thing I ever did. An example of that is quite often people say, Cap, how can you remember to fly all, whatever it is, 38 modules now, learning all the buttons from all the modules? And the answer is, I don't. Obviously, I can't. I'm not even particularly smart, you know, as you probably realised. What I've done is I've learnt so many planes now that I now understand the basic physics and the basic theory behind the systems now that I don't need to remember the buttons in the planes now. Like a real pilot, when he's, you know, really learnt the plane, he's flown it for ages, he understands how the behind the scenes stuff works. So he can then transfer to another aircraft pretty easily. Well, it's kind of the same for me. Another experienced DCSs. Once you've learned the technology behind the systems, when you transfer from a Hornet to an F-16 to an F-14 to an F-86 even, it's so much easier to understand where the controls are going to be, how they work, how they interact with each other, and so on. And so what I'm saying here is it's a really good thing to try and get to this point, to really understand all the basic physics and the basics behind the system through an official manual. That's probably the best way of doing it overall, because then when it comes to jumping onto other aircraft, switching between aircraft like we do all the time, it makes everything just fall into place. You just jump into a plane you haven't driven for 6 months and everything just makes sense. You know where the controls should be, you know how they should interact with each other, and so on. One thing to add is that all of you out there will get stuck and you will have questions, and there are a massive plethora of places you can ask that question. You've got Hoggit forum in Reddit or in Discord, all free to go in there and ask. You've got the ED official forum linked from their main webpage, all free, go in and ask. Grim Reapers, come in and ask anything you want, we'll do our best to answer it. And all the other, so many other things out there now. It's such a good support network. Any way you want, ask the question, and one way or another someone will get back to you. I hope that was useful, and see you later.